Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. In the month of May I read a total of 12 books and that was 3 audiobooks, 3 short stories or novellas, and 6 novels. I read a lot of materials, so I'm just going to be jumping right into it and trying to get through this as quickly as I can. The first book that I read is The Love Interest by Cale Dietrich. This was a May Book of the Month selection, so thank you so much to Book of the Month for sending this one to me. This book is about these 2 boys who were spies and they work for this company that their main goal is to make this girl fall in love with them. Whoever doesn't succeed at this is going to die, and like basically one of them is a good boy and one of them is a bad boy. Meanwhile, while this is happening, they both start to fall in love with each other instead. This description is what intrigued me the most about this book. I mean, it's so cool. It kind of sounds like the movie This Means War, the one with Reese Witherspoon, but like with an LGBT twist on it, like if Tom Hardy and Chris Pine fell for each other instead. I just think it's so interesting. This book ended up being more of a guilty pleasure read for me. The writing in this book is pretty terrible. I mean, it's very cliched, cheesy, and there's just something about this book that really draws me in. I don't know what it is. Honestly, the romance in this book is so cute, but I don't think there's nearly enough of it. Like, there's so much more of the spy aspect of this book, and I do think the end got a little bit crazy and weird and just it felt really rushed. I don't know what was happening. It felt like kind of a different book towards the end. I did ship it so hard between the 2 male leads here, and I do think it is like a guilty pleasure of mine because I know it's kind of terrible and kind of like really cheesy, but it's still like I really liked it. I ended up giving this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. The second book I read this month was Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. This book follows a girl named Bailey who moves from the East Coast to live with her dad in Coronado, California. She is talking to this boy online named Alex who's like a movie buff. They talk on this like movie fandom website. She gets this summer job at the museum on the island. She starts to talk to this boy named Porter who's like a security guard at the museum. She doesn't know that Porter is Alex Approximately. What's really annoying about this book is that the Goodreads description is basically what I just told you, but it kind of spoils you for the freaking book because our main character here doesn't realize that Alex is Porter until like the end basically. So it's like the author like spoiled who it is for the readers. Not that it's a big shock or anything because you can guess it, but it's still just like, I don't know. This book reminded me a little bit of P.S. I Like You by Casey West, but just not as good. It follows the same formula as that book basically, where it's like these 2 mystery writers are writing back and forth and then you're trying to figure out who it is and then it's like the most obvious person. But however, I do love the California vibes in this book. I do love Bailey's relationship with her dad. As a huge movie fan myself, I honestly felt like these characters don't really talk enough about movies. Really talking about movies to be like legitimate movie buffs. It just felt like they were movie buffs for the sake of having it as a character trait. I don't know how to explain it. I did like how every single chapter though starts with like a movie quote at the top. Like, that's probably my favorite aspect of this book. The romance is super cheesy. I couldn't really stand Porter in the beginning, honestly. He was such a dick. I ended up giving it 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Trinity by M. Never, and this is a short story. It's like about 100 pages, I think. This story follows this girl who gets in a relationship with 2 guys. It's another one of those menage stories, and this is my second time reading one of those. And honestly, this book was okay. I mean, I kind of forgot that I read it this month because of how forgettable it is. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I don't really remember a lot of it, to be honest, but it was okay. I know that. It was okay. Next book I read was The Impossible Fortress by Jason Rekulek. Sorry if I totally just butchered that name. This was an audiobook I actually listened to, but I did get sent this book for Book of the Month last month. So thank you so much to Book of the Month for sending me a copy of this one. This book takes place in 1987 and it follows this kid named Billy and his friends as they attempt to steal the newest Playboy magazine. They're really like obsessed with computers, and Billy has this dream of like creating his own video game company in the future, and right now he's working on this video game called The Impossible Fortress. Billy is dared by his friends and he needs to get close to the store owner's daughter named Mary in order to like steal the Playboy books because they're all underage, so they can't just go and buy it. But it's like so cute because he actually starts to like fall for her, and he finds out that she's really good at writing code and computers too, and she starts helping him with his like video game. So cute. Like everything about this book is just so adorable. This book really captured the like teenage boy friendships when they're like 14 years old like really well. style. Kind of reminds me of like Paper Towns in that way, just the way it gets the like teenage boy friendships like really good. I loved the 80s vibe in this. I loved the like video games, like the old school video games in this. Like it's just so cute. It's just really adorable, and Billy really like grew on me as a character, and he's only 14 years old, you know, so he's still trying to like figure it out. But what's really cool is that the author actually made the game The Impossible Fortress that Billy's making in this book, and he has it on his website, and you can actually play it, and it runs like an 80s game, which is super cool. So I'll put a link in the description to the game on his website if you want to check it out. I think it's really, really cool, and the fact that authors put a lot of like effort into not only their book but then like to make something of the book a reality, I think that's really awesome. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was a really cute book. Next book I read this month was Take Me Back by Megan March, and this was an audiobook that I listened to. It follows a couple named Dane and Kat who have been married for 2 years but have lost their spark, so they decide to go on a vacation back to the island they met in an attempt to get their spark back. This book was okay. I mean, the beginning was really good and I was really interested in what was going on. I really liked how it was told from both Kat and Dane's perspectives. Favorite character in this book by far is Kat's gay best friend Benji. I think he's so funny, and he was definitely the most entertaining out of all of the characters. However, this book is super insta-lovey. They meet on an island and it's just like boom, love at first sight as soon as they see each other from across the room. The second half of this book does feel like it changes genres a little bit. Like the first half of this book is definitely just romance, and then the second half of this book turns into more like thriller, action, very abrupt, and it felt really awkward, kind of like the book Moonshot by Alessandra Torre. It just completely shifts into like a different genre like at the halfway point, which I think is really strange. I don't think it needed that extra like suspenseful element. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the greatest. The next book I read is a book that was sent to me by 12 Point, and this is a company that promotes undiscovered writers, which I think is super awesome. And so they sent me their first collection, which is titled Every Beginning I've Ever Written Is Kinda Sad. This book is just so cute and so beautiful, of these like little short stories and little poems and like illustrations. So adorable. I was able to read this all in one sitting pretty easily. I mean, it's very easy to read. It's only about 100 pages. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Stay tuned for the end of this video. I'm going to be doing an unboxing with both of these. Next book I read is Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, and I wanted to say thank you so much to Book of the Month for sending me a copy of this as one of their special May selections. This is the author of The Girl on the Train, so I was super excited to finally get my hands on her second novel of women who over generations have been dying in this river that runs through the town. Whether it's like suicide or murder or whatever, these women have been dying in the water. They've either been jumping, drowning. And this book follows this girl named Nell who dies, and police are suspecting that she jumped from this cliff and died in the water. And the daughter of Nell is like, no, somebody pushed her, and she like strongly believes that her mom didn't jump. One thing about this book that is very interesting is that it follows 11 different characters, and it has point of views from every single one of the characters. It follows Nell, who's the one that jumped, and then it follows her daughter, her sister, it follows the 2 detectives in town, a local psychic in the town, that one of the detectives' wives, his dad, just so many people. Like, there's so many people, and so it's kind of hard to keep track of in the beginning, but oh my god, once you do start to get into it, you realize that every single point of view has a purpose. Paula Hawkins is such a great writer in mystery, and she can really like build a mystery so well, to the point where I'm just like, I need to know what happens. And I felt that same way with The Girl on the Train. I just found it really engaging, and I was really hooked on this story. I will admit, I did think the ending was a little bit anticlimactic, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was still a really solid book, so I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's one of my new favorite thrillers. Okay, the next book I read this month was The Secrets In My Scowl by A.E. Via, and this book is a male-male romance that follows Jacob, who's a lawyer, and Wild, who's a wedding planner. This book was kind of difficult to get into at first. Writing style is very strange and awkward, just like reads very awkwardly for some reason. Like, it's not written in a beautiful way, it's written in a very awkward and clunky way. Jacob is like a really guarded character, and he's been hurt so many times, and it's interesting the way this is written because it kind of shows you in the beginning how many times Jacob's been like fucked over basically by all these other people. Jacob and Wild don't even really meet in this book until a good part of the way through it. Like, it really goes through their backgrounds first, which I do appreciate. You know, like, it shows Jacob going through all this shit in his his life before he meets Wilde, and instead of doing that through like flashbacks throughout the story, they actually do show in the beginning of the book. So I do appreciate that, but it does make it a little bit difficult to get into. Once they start to like really open up and trust each other and be there for each other, it's so freaking beautiful, and it was just giving me all the feels. Like, it was so cute. There's like some really intense shit that happens towards like the end of this book that I wasn't expecting, that just like hit me in the heart like so hard. Really enjoyed this book. It took me off guard. I didn't think in the beginning that I was gonna end up liking it as much as I did, so I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Broken Bay by Andrea Dunlop, and this is a short story. It's about 100 pages. This story is pitched on Goodreads as Bridesmaids Meet Lost, but it's actually not really like that at all. It's just a story that follows this group of bridesmaids to this island, and they stay at this cabin that turns out to be a little bit haunted. That's basically the premise of the story, which I still do like. I like that premise of the story. I think it's very interesting. This book does remind me a lot of the book In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware, but I just don't think it's done as well as that book. It had so much potential because it's such a short book. Haunted cabin that they're staying in. I thought it was so interesting, but the freaking haunted cabin is like hardly ever mentioned in the book. It just kind of like plays in the background, you know? It's not really like the main storyline happening. Like, the paranormal thing was definitely the most interesting thing happening in this. The drama between the friends is happening, you know? And I thought like it was such a waste of the potential of that, and the ending was like ridiculously lame and just kind of like killed the whole buzz for the whole thing. So I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. I wasn't a huge fan of this one. The next book I read was Broken by Nicola Hacken. It is a male-male romance that follows Theo and James. James is the head of this book publishing company, and Theo just gets hired at the company, so they're working together. It's an office romance. This book does have trigger warnings for suicide, self-harm, depression, just the whole load of it all. It's very, very heavy. This book was like, it weighed heavy on my soul. James is like an incredibly depressed character, and it does make this book difficult to read because of that, but at the same time it kind of makes their romance and love for each other all the more beautiful because James is such a like depressed person. Theo is honestly like, he's one of the most inspirational characters I've ever read about because he's just so sensitive and open-minded and optimistic. I just think he's exactly what James needs, and I also love that Theo is a really big reader and writer, and it made him so relatable in that sense. I mean, the fact that his ultimate dream is to work for this book publishing company, you know, like, relatable. I think this book describes mental illness in a very realistic way, and it doesn't try to sugarcoat anything. And I think the side characters are also written very well. Theo's lesbian best friend named Tess, who I think she was hilarious, and she's very well fleshed out. And then we have James's older brother Max and Theo's brother Tom, and they're just all really fleshed out characters, and I felt like they all had their moment in this book to shine, you know, and I really appreciate well fleshed out side characters. Overall, this book is very heartbreaking, beautiful, and just, it was great. I really ship James and Theo so hard, and I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was The Circle by Dave Eggers, and this is a book that I was required to read for my English class. Jesus Christ, this book is crazy. It follows this girl named May who gets hired to work at The Circle, which is basically one of the most powerful internet companies in the world. It's basically like Facebook but on steroids. This company believes that everything should be known. It believes that secrets are lies and that privacy is theft. Everything should be shared with everyone, you know, kind of like Facebook, but like way more intense. So this book is a dystopian because it's not that far of a stretch from what our reality actually is, and that makes it all the more creepy, honestly, that there are companies that are similar to The Circle that do exist, and it's just kind of scary that this could be our future, like with the way technology is advancing and stuff. It's really creepy. But the concept of this book is so interesting, and it has a lot to say about society. However, the writing style is so freaking terrible. It's so hard to get into this book, and all the characters feel very like flat and one-dimensional, especially our main character May. I could not stand her. She's honestly one of the like worst protagonists I think I've ever read about. She's just so easily manipulated and brainwashed, and she just doesn't have her own opinions. Like, she just lets people like control her and walk all over her, and I couldn't stand her as a main character in this. She was just so frustrating. But it is hard to rate this book, you know, because while I did really enjoy the ideas and the concept of this book, and like the idea of The Circle is so fascinating, that made this book totally worth reading. Like, the ideas presented in this about our society I think are really powerful and really true, but I just really hated her as a protagonist. I feel like the ending was like the beginning of like a really awesome story. I feel like the ending of this book is where the story really takes off. So I kind of felt like a little weird about the ending. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. It's definitely something that I'm thinking about a lot still, so I don't know if my rating is going to be changing, but I don't know how I feel about this, you know? Like when you hate the protagonist as much as you do, it's kind of hard to like the book as a whole. And the last book I read this month was Goodbye Days by Jeff Zentner, and this was an audiobook I listened to, and this book follows this boy named Carver who is texting one of his friends when his 3 friends get in a car accident because they were texting and driving with him and they are all killed. Intense, beautiful coming of age story for Carver. I think the writing style in this book is very beautiful. It has a lot of really great quotes about growing up and about life. I kind of wish this story was written from Blake's perspective, just because I do think that Blake had like the most interesting backstory out of all the boy characters. It would be interesting to see what this book would be like if it was written from Blake's perspective. Carver has like a goodbye day with family members of each of the boys' families in order to like say goodbye to them forever, and it's just so beautiful. And Carver's scenes with Blake's grandma when they were having their goodbye day for Blake, it was so beautiful and moving. One of the better like YA books I think that have come out this year. So definitely check that one out. I ended up giving that one 3.5 out of 5 stars. Those are all of the books that I read in May. 12 Point Collective has asked me to do an unboxing. Well, this is basically, I've shown you the actual physical book that comes with it, so this is what the book will look like. And then when you open this box here, you get this cute little 12 Point Collective sticker thing, like note that talks about what they do and talking about how they promote like undiscovered writing and talent and stuff like that, which I think is super cool. There's just basically this note in here too. If you use the coupon code Gabby, just my name, then you get 15% off. So I'll be putting a link in the description for their website if you want to go check it out and see what it's all about. This month has been absolutely insane, and I honestly don't know how I was able to read as much as I did. I was just really motivated to read at the beginning of the month, so I did read a shit ton at the beginning of the month. Finally got to read more of my book of the month books, which I'm super excited about because I've been dying to like read more of them. And hopefully next month I'll just continue reading more of those because I have so many now. I love the ones that I just got for June. This month has been so crazy because I actually just left my job that I've had for over a year, and I just started a new job about a week and a half ago. So it's been freaking crazy and hectic, and I don't really know how I managed to read so much. So that's a mystery to me. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will definitely see you guys next time. This group of brides. Oh my god, I need